Welcome to the deep dive. You ever scroll through your feed and see these kind of alarming health headlines?
All the time.
Yeah, like this idea that's been floating around that modern human body temperature has dropped, and somehow that's making us, weaker,
Mm.
more vulnerable to infections, maybe even cancer.
Right. It sounds pretty scary on the surface.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're going to unpack that specific claim. We've got an insightful article here by Professor Lin called "Is the Drop in Modern Human Body Temperature Likely to Cause Infection and Cancer?" And he's directly taking on claims from another publication, HEOO, which he argues is, well, distorting facts.
Strong words.
Definitely. Our mission today is pretty clear. Cut through that noise,
Yeah.
get to the actual science, and really underline why that critical thinking muscle is so important with health info.
Absolutely essential.
Right, so let's jump in. The original article Professor Lin was responding to, it made some pretty big claims. What exactly were they saying?
They were definitely bold. The gist was, okay, normal body temp is generally accepted as, say, 36.0 to 37.2 degrees Celsius. Okay.
But they claimed our current average, often under 37, isn't actually normal. And then came the kicker. They linked this supposed drop, saying even a 1 degree C decrease could slash immunity by 30%.
30%. Wow.
Yeah, leading to higher risks for infections, for cancer. They talked about metabolism slowing down, white blood cells getting sluggish, even suggesting our immune system might miss thousands of cancer cells daily because of it.
That sounds quite traumatic. So what was Professor Lin's first reaction to that? What did he pick up on immediately?
Well, what's fascinating is how quickly he flags, let's say, a fundamental logical snag.
Okay.
If the accepted normal range is 36.0 to 37.2 degrees, well, in 36.6 degrees, which is often cited as the current average,
Right.
it falls squarely inside that normal range. It's not below normal, it's within normal.
Ah, I see. So the premise itself is flawed. They're calling something normal not normal.
Precisely. He calls it logic confusion. He's
Yeah.
saying driving 60 in a 50 to 70 zone is somehow abnormal. It just doesn't track.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big point right there. But here's where it gets, well, really interesting for me. The original health piece did cite a source, right? A scientific paper from 2020.
It did. They cited a paper titled Decreasing Human Body Temperature in the United States Since the Industrial Revolution. So on the surface, it looks like they had some scientific backing.
So they're pointing to real research. What did Professor Lin find when he actually looked at that paper? How was it used or maybe misused?
Yeah, this is crucial. Professor Lin went straight to that source paper and found it was, frankly, profoundly misinterpreted by the health article.
How so?
The health article claimed that a lower basal metabolic rate, your BMR, basically your resting energy burn, was a negative thing resulting from lower temperatures leading to poor health.
Okay, that sounds like their main mechanism.
But the actual scientific paper, it suggests something quite different. It notes that higher metabolic rates, historically, are associated with shorter lifespans across species.
Wait, higher rates with shorter lives?
Exactly. Think of it like an engine running hotter, potentially wearing out faster. So the paper implies that a slightly lower BMR, linked to that slight temperature decrease, might actually correlate with longer life expectancy, not worse health.
Wow. So the health article completely flipped the implication of the science it cited.
It turned it right on its head. The very thing the paper hinted could be a positive sign associated with a longer life, the article spun as a negative health outcome.
Okay, that's pretty serious misreading. So if the average temp is still normal and lower BMR isn't necessarily bad, what about the claims about immunity and cancer?
Well, those claims were essentially built on that faulty foundation. If the temperature isn't abnormally low and the associated metabolic shift isn't inherently negative, then the whole argument about dramatically reduced immunity, sluggish white blood cells, missing cancer cells, it just kind of falls apart.
Right, the house of cards tumbles.
Exactly. And Professor Lin points out something even more important from that 2020 paper. It actually explains why body temperature has likely decreased slightly over the last century or so.
Oh, what's the reason then?
It's attributed primarily to a reduction in chronic inflammation.
Less inflammation.
Yes. Think about it historically, populations dealt with more persistent low-grade infections. Tuberculosis, malaria, gum disease, just constant low-level immune activation.
Okay, makes sense.
Thanks to massive improvements in public health, better sanitation, hygiene, cleaner water, widespread use of antibiotics, vaccines, we have much less of that chronic background inflammation. Our immune systems aren't constantly simmering.
And that relates to body temperature how?
Inflammation raises body temperature even slightly. So less chronic inflammation means a slightly lower baseline temperature. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign that we're healthier, living in better conditions.
So let me get this straight. This slight drop in average body temperature isn't some kind of modern failing.
Yeah.
It's actually a marker of progress, a sign of improved public health.
Precisely. It's not indicating compromised immunity or impending doom. It reflects the success of public health measures that have reduced the burden of chronic infections and inflammation, contributing directly to the longer, healthier lives many people experience today compared to 150 years ago.
That completely reframes the narrative.
Yeah.
From a negative sign to a positive indicator.
It really does. And this whole situation, this deep dive, it just perfectly illustrates why critical thinking is paramount. You can't just see a citation and assume the claim is valid.
You'd have to look closer.
You absolutely do. Does the source actually say what the article claims it says?
Yeah.
Is the interpretation reasonable? Especially with complex topics like health and biology, digging just one layer deeper can reveal a completely different picture.
So the real takeaway here isn't about worrying over fractions of a degree on the thermometer. It's understanding that this subtle shift likely reflects a healthier population, not a weaker one. It's a quiet sign of human progress tied to sanitation, medicine, and better living standards.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
And for you, listening, the next time you see one of those health claims that sounds a bit too dramatic or surprising, maybe take a pause. Ask yourself, does the evidence really stack up? Or is someone, perhaps unintentionally, maybe intentionally, twisting a small piece of data into a big scare? As we saw today, a little bit of skepticism and maybe a quick look at the actual source if you can save you from buying into a myth and help you stay genuinely informed about your health.